myself, and Josh Aaron. So we need a minimum of 3 to approve things. So it'd have to be unanimous if we approved. If that's a problem, if you would prefer, I apologize. There was a last minute problem with one of our members. If that is a problem, we could reschedule, or we could go ahead. It's up to you.
Well, perhaps it makes sense for Martin to explain what's being proposed here and have some conversation about it. Maybe we can reach a resolution. If it looks like we need more votes to get it done, then yes, let's do that. Martin, okay. Is Andrew going to check in?
Andrew's here. Andrew Lefkowitz from Barless Wedlick is on. But I guess it does feel like 3 is a little skinny.
Well,
5.
What would you like to do? Would you like us to? What we could do is we could start the meeting and then have a discussion. I mean, and I think that would be the most useful thing.
Okay, that's good.
See where we are, to see which direction it's going, and then if we need to pick it up at another time, we can do that.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to call the Board of Architectural Review meeting of the April 15th to commence. First on the agenda is Friedman and Waltman, 2 Ridge Road, to address the installation of skylights that were installed without the bar approval and deer fencing. So if you'd like to explain to us, thank you for your letter and the information. So basically, if you'd like to present your case to explain why you would what the situation is and what so how we can remedy it.
Thank you. So joining us tonight is Hank Christensen, who you all know, and then Andrew Lefkowitz, who is an architect at Barless Wedlick, and Andrew has been involved in the process for several years. So if you don't mind, I thought that I would start with a little background, and then Andrew would walk through some of the specifics of the materials that were submitted. So just generally, I mean, I think Rob, you're new to the bar since we did our work. 2 Ridge Road is an 1880s house that had a 1950s kitchen addition. We bought it in the spring of 2016. And our plan was to restore a window in the dining room that had been boarded up by the previous owner. We wanted more light in the dining room, and that we were going to add a carport and a screened-in porch on either side of the 1950s kitchen addition. We were also going to cut back the driveway by 2/3 and create a lawn. It took 4 design rounds with the bar in order to get an agreement on a design. And we got approved in the summer of 2017, it was about a year. But it was clear to us when we got approval from the bar that the bar had misgivings. And that really made us reconsider. We bought our house in Tuxedo Park because we love the architecture. We think the village is beautiful. We did not want to do a questionable restoration. And the misgivings of the bar was enough to make us put the project on hold. So we stopped work. We decided we were going to get another architect involved in the project, and we hired Barless Wedlick that has been involved with multiple historic restorations. We fired our landscape architect. We got a new one, Margie Ruddick Landscape. She's extraordinary and has done work in the bar in the park before. And we just wanted to come up with something that was more sympathetic and sensitive to our house and the neighborhood. So our design partners came up with a new design. We made it less linear, more Tuxedo Park, and it was approved first pass by the bar when we presented it at the end of 2018. So we're now 3 years into this project, and we started work in the spring of 2019. Things were progressing for a year, and then in March of 2020, COVID hit. By then we were living full-time in Tuxedo Park, and the governor shut down construction for 3 months. It took another several months of kind of pleading and begging with roofers and framers to come back. So we had lost 5-6 months as a result of all that, and construction fatigue was starting to set in. And by the end of the summer, the framers had installed the framing, and they were now putting the plywood sheathing on top of the additions. It was also peak summer, and the south side of the house has a lot of trees, very a lot of vegetation. And so between the trees and the sheathing going on the additions, our dining room and our kitchen were suddenly quite dark. So it felt like someone puts a pot over your head. You really needed to turn the lights on. I couldn't read the newspaper in the kitchen in the morning without turning the lights on, even on a sunny day. So we had our architects come to the site, and their recommendation was to put in 3 discrete skylights. One is not visible at all from anywhere on a public street. The other 2 are discrete and hardly visible. So the decision at that point was, the framers are finishing, the roofers are coming the following week. Do we go back to the bar and put the project on hold for several months? And we had heard from our roofers that if there was going to be a delay, we were going to be out of queue. They were not going to be able to finish the project before winter. We were going to get bumped to March, April of 2021, and we were going to have tarps on our house for 8 months through the winter. So it was a crazy time in the world. Maybe we would have made a different decision now, but you all remember the summer, and we just said, we need to keep our family safe. We need to move forward. Let's just go with the skylights, and we'll see what happens. So the question of why am I telling you this long story? Because we want to underscore that we were very sincere in trying to do a faithful quality restoration. We really did take to heart what the bar said and what the bar signaled, and the wisdom of the bar. And I mean, Suzanne has told Sheila multiple times when she runs into her at the club, that we really appreciate the feedback that the bar gave us, because it did make us have a better project. And importantly, now we're almost done. We have some before or after pictures. We should be finished by the end of next month. And we love how things have come out. And importantly, we hear from our neighbors that they love how things have come out. And a couple of quotes are, "Oh, this project is a gift to the village." Someone else saying the bar should be over the moon. So what we're asking you is for retroactive approval for these 3 skylights. And we can, kind of very honestly say that in our mind, you should look at the totality of the projects, and that these skylights are not consequential. And that's our background.
We appreciate the context. The crux of the matter is that if the bar was consulted before or during and now after, the answer would clearly be a no. That the skylights would not be approved. It's been the case in a larger context with other homes in the park, other newer homes, historic homes, where skylights have been requested, and it's been a no. So that's where we are with this situation. So that's one. The other aspect is absolutely we appreciate what you've done to the house and what you've brought to Tuxedo Park. We applaud you, and we're delighted that we were able to come to compromises with certain things that you gave and gave to us and compromised. But here we are. So let's. So I'm not confident of what we can do with this. But I'd love for us to have a robust discussion of what, if there is anything that we can compromise with, if there's any alternative that is where we can go. So let's address the biggest one, which is the biggest problem, is the one facing Tuxedo Road, the larger skylight, which is right next to the eyebrow window. So the juxtaposition there is very jarring and visible from the road. So so that's the one that really is the biggest problem. So I'm wondering if your architect, or if you have any thoughts of how that could be hidden from you, from view, so that you could retain it possibly, but that it wouldn't be visible. Because the third one is not visible from the public areas, so that one is less problematic. But let's focus on the first one. What are your thoughts? What are your what's your feedback about that? About possible ways of hiding it?
Would it be helpful if I shared screens so we're all looking at the same images? Or
Yes, absolutely.
okay. So would it be helpful then if I could just kind of walk everybody through the presentation that was submitted?
Yeah, that would be great.
Please.
Or would you like to go directly to answering that question?
Page one is perfect.
Okay, I'll just do a quick walkthrough of the design, and then try to address what was discussed. So as Martin mentioned, my name is Andrew Lefkowitz. I'm an architect with Barlas Wedlick Architects. And our firm has been working in New York and the Hudson River Valley for over 25 years. We work often with historic homes as well as modern homes done in historic styles. And so as Martin began to describe, the design of this home has gone through many iterations over the decades, as well as the design that has been presented to the bar has gone through many iterations. On page one here of the submission is the approved drawings from 2017, which show the original carport and screen porch in a more rectilinear nature. We just wanted to point out that that there was an existing skylight which was already being restored as part of the project. Just to make known that was already on the submission drawings.
So that was approved by the
and,
bar, because our summons that we got talked about 4 skylights. This first skylight precedes us by decades, was disclosed to the bar, and its repair was approved by the bar in 2017.
Great,
And so we repaired it after we got approval.
great.
Right. So as Martin mentioned, some of the before and after photographs. So just as a reminder, before the project was started, the southern end of the house looked like this. It had seemed to be neglected. It had exposed utilities, propane tanks, air conditioning, through window air conditioning units, and the design that we were brought on to work through was to create a carport and screen porch that was, as we've been saying, more sympathetic to the historic nature of the house. We introduced the curving roof lines, which respond to existing elements of the house, as well as historic porches that were at one point on this house. And you know, we feel that it's been a very successful transformation, a great welcoming element, you know, to the property and to the home. So we're very happy with how the design has come out. So the skylights in question that we're discussing here are the kitchen skylights, two small skylights here, which open to the kitchen below. This is on the east side of the house where the screen porch is, and then the carport skylight is on the northern side of the carport here, which is the opposite side of the roof from this elevation. And you can see here in the existing photographs that that only 2 of the 3 skylights are visible from the road. This skylight here at the kitchen is one of the skylights here at the kitchen is visible from a small stretch of Ridge Road, The other skylight on the other side of the screen porch is not visible from the exterior at all. And the skylight that we were just speaking about at the carport here is visible from a small section of Main East Lake Road, and then a smaller portion of Tuxedo Road when the trees are bare. So, so overall, you know, we felt that the addition of the skylights was an important aspect for the you know, the interior function of the home to bring light to these important spaces that the family was going to be using, and we felt that it was in keeping with the character of the architecture, having light-filled interiors with other spaces with large window openings. So we thought that it was important to you know, retain some of the natural light in these spaces, and so we did attempt to locate them in discrete locations, and we feel that they are not significant details to the overall context of the project, and that they don't have an overall detrimental effect to the architecture or to the greater context of the park, and we feel that the renovation has done great things to restore the home and bring beauty to the renovation. With regards to the question about the carport skylight, it may be possible to create a sort of screening on this lower roof line, sort of like a railing element, which could obscure the skylight from further view. It would be an additional element that we would have to kind of study and see how it may be able to relate to other items. But I suppose that is one option for screening.
And adjacent to our house is that public village-owned triangle. So there really are two East Lake roads. And there was a big tree in that triangle that got blown over in the August storms. But when that was up, you couldn't see that skylight from Tuxedo Road.
Yeah, thank you for putting it into context. I've reiterate before I hand over to ask my colleagues for their comments that we would if you would before, during, and after, the answer would have been no. So that's I think that's where we stand. But do any of my colleagues have any comments?
Well, just to start off with, it is a superb renovation in general, and I can understand why the neighbors are as positive about it as they are, and I think all of us here would echo the same sentiment. It's a major house. It was in need of serious TLC, and it got it from you. So that's all good. I guess two thoughts. The south facing, I believe, or the garden front, the two on the kitchen wing, the two very square, small skylights, those to me seem completely innocuous, partly because they are so small, partly because they are so symmetrical, and thirdly, because they really aren't seen from any vantage point. And so, the net benefits clearly outweighs any other consideration. And I noticed when I walked down, is it Ledge Road or Ridge Road?
Ridge Road.
There, just a host of young saplings coming up in the few vantage points where you would ever see that probably block it now, and certainly in 3 and 5 years will entirely block it, giving you so much more privacy, which is great. So those, from where I sit as one member of the board, seem like open and shut fine. I think I agree with temporary Chairman Gao that the one that maybe requires a little bit more discussion is the one, I believe, on the garage. It's the larger one and the one that's sort of uncomfortably close to the eyebrow dormer, right? If we can
Yeah,
call
right.
that up. I guess my question was, had it, if more light was needed there, had it not occurred to anyone to simply enlarge the eyebrow dormer?
So we originally had a plan to have 2 eyebrow dormers on that carport.
Mhm.
And the one element of our design that the bar did not like was that there were 2 eyebrow dormers on that
It was
carport.
asymmetrical. It was asymmetrical.
No, it was,
No.
well, so we were asked to remove
I see.
2 of
Yeah.
them.
There were 2 sort of in series,
Right.
and the compromise that we came to at a previous approval meeting was to merge them into one, and we were able to make it a little bit longer than a perfectly symmetrical round eyebrow.
Oh,
So,
so there were structural,
had-
and
in that original,
so am I understanding correctly? There were structural issues with beams that prevented it from being any larger than what you have?
Correct.
Right.
But the original plan was to have 2 of them on either side. So it would have been, we lost two dormers because the bar asked us to remove it, and we wanted to deconstruct it and do what the bar said. So
Well, thank you. That's, as you say, Martin, I'm coming in kind of fresh to this, and that's all additional context for me, which is helpful. What can I ask you and Andrew and everyone concerned for any thoughts about possibly, or I guess it's also asking Christopher Gao, any thoughts about mediating the joint between this new extension of the house and the old end of the house, which is a little bit inelegant anyway, with the additional benefit of screening? Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Or maybe I'm not being clear
is
about
the question as to whether or not the screening in this area would be aesthetically more pleasing.
Well, maybe I should use a better word than screening.
Just one sec. David McFadden, would you be able to put yourself on mute? There's a lot of noise coming through. Thanks.
Maybe rather than to use the word screening, I wonder if this isn't a good opportunity to address what is a slightly less than felicitous joint there, right? I think we can all agree. Right, just to the left of where the arrow is pointing, you see the resolution between the new wing and the existing house is abrupt, and it doesn't look thoroughly well thought out to my eye, but I don't know if anyone agrees or disagrees. I mean, so just to extend that thought, if you were to do what I think Andrew and Christopher were talking about, is find a way of softening that joint with a more meaningful resolution and continuity between the 2 parts of the building, it might well offer some opportunities to screen. So in other words, not to put makeup on a wart, but to make a meaningful change that has an additional benefit. I guess that's what I'm floating as an idea.
Josh, do you have any comments?
I think that's a possibility. I think that's definitely a part of the roof that could be improved upon. However, there is the skylight on the other side that is pretty plainly visible from Ridge Road, which I think should be addressed as well. But I do think there's an opportunity to fix this one that we're looking at right here.
I think that, so that, I mean, I think we've, that's where it stands at the moment. It's, that's the, I see the only option for it, and that would be entertained. But without that, unfortunate, I don't, we would be happy to vote on it, but I don't think it would be, because we've never approved it before, and we wouldn't approve it if you had come to us. And so coming after the fact, it's, even though you've done such a great job with the house, we'd still be in a position of saying no. So that's where, I think that's where where it stands at the moment.
But I mean, are we hearing that there's agreement that one of the kitchen skylight, which is not visible from the street, is acceptable?
I think we would have to actually formally vote on it.
But for your benefit, since we're talking this through, Martin, what I'm hearing is that all three members right now feel that one of the two windows in the kitchen is unobjectionable. I, speaking for myself, feel that both of the kitchen ones are unobjectionable. In speaking for myself, the one that I think is open to further discussion is this one that we're looking at right now on the shared screen. I think from where Josh sits, there are two objectionable ones and one that's not objectionable.
Okay.
That's helpful.
And then, Rob, your point about the connection being inelegant, is that from this picture, or have you had a chance to see it in person? Because I took these pictures and I'm a lousy photographer.
Well, thank you. That's a very useful question. Because I have been watching with delight, really, at the project as it's been unfolding, and excitement, actually, at all the things that you and your team are doing. And I hadn't stood there in situ and thought, wow, that's an inelegant joint. I am making that point right now, looking at that picture in front of me, to be fair. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we ask, I mean, the last page of this is we just wanted to get closure on a door that would allow us to get in and out of the deer fence. We didn't think through it when we submitted our plans in 2018. So the deer fence was approved by the bar. We specifically chose to not have it be anywhere around the East Lake Road side of the house. We wanted to keep that open and welcoming to our neighbors. Where we're putting it is really kind of in the woodlands, on the other side of the property, which are covered with trees, and then up along Ridge Road, but it quickly goes into an area that's all covered with trees. But we do have that area that Andrew is pointing to, which is circled in red, which is where we would have a deer fence cutting across there. And the suggestion is to put different kinds of cherry laurels around it, so it would camouflage it, but we need a door to go in and out, and rather than having a standard deer fence door, Andrew came up with a design on the following page.
What are the materials of the door? Do you have some?
I don't believe there are material imagery submitted here. The columns and header of the archway would be related to the wooden elements of the carport and the screen porch. So we were thinking painted wood with the same stop chamfer details as are present on the rest of the structures. The header of the gate also has a scrolling element, which is a motif that is repeated on the house at the front doors. There are these beautiful historic brackets that have a carved scroll detail. So we wanted to sort of begin alluding to that detail here. And here we were picturing as painted wood, similar in detail and proportion to the other doors of the home, and potentially having a sort of widened copper mesh screening on the inset that could patina over time.
So can I say,
Go ahead, Rob.
so I feel your pain about the deer, and even though they've been nicely culled, it was so much worse a while back, a decade and a half ago. But we all need, or many of us need, deer fencing. It's just as simple as that. And I think you've found a great solution to placement and disguise and everything. So from where I sit, all that makes perfect sense. Zeroing in on the door here, the frame and the top of the design, all of that, and the chamfered beams, all that looks great. I'm a little bit curious about the door itself, which looks very much of the door to a building as opposed to a garden gate. It doesn't feel especially garden-like or exterior or outdoors in its design. It looks as if it would lead into a garage or a room or an interior space. And I wonder if you might, I mean, I'd be happy to share any number of images that I can quickly come up with, but if you...
Andrew, can you share that inspiration image that you circulated?
Let me see if I can look at it quickly enough.
Rob, because I actually agree with you. The one that when you look at it in black and white, it looks more like a door than the image that we were working from. I think maybe if you see the one that...
And this inset middle panel is,
I think actually
leaning.
This was one of the inspiration images that we were using, but this one actually it's actually using the idea of a room door. Was that the one you were thinking of, Martin,
Yes.
or was there a different one?
Well, there were two images.
This is one
I
of
don't remember.
the images that we were...
Okay.
I mean, this one has a context with a more sturdy fence around it, so it has a little bit more of a support. This one looks like a spare door that's gone for a walk from the house.
But this middle panel is not wood. It's a screening, so it is meant to be light and feel open. So maybe that's part of the problem.
No, I think that's clear. It's just like the hardware looks like a door from a building. The painted white. If it was raw wood, like more like a pergola, then it would be so much more fitting and appropriate. And then maybe the more building door wouldn't stick out so much. But as it is painted white, a door with that metal handle. It makes it look as if, oh, they've had a spare door, let's use it in the garden, which is kind of what's happened in this image on the left.
Right.
Does it say, I mean, you see the untreated wood there, or the treated wood, but the raw wood, not painted, is so much more appropriate.
Agreed.
A couple additional thoughts. I agree entirely with Christopher Gow. That actually does look like a door that was repurposed. It looks incredibly charming there. Why does it look incredibly charming? Partly it's an extraordinarily informal context compared to the formality of your place. Secondly, as Christopher points out, there's a whole context of a very sturdy, quite serious fencing. Third, if you notice the gap between the top of the door and the lintel that's sort of joining the two posts, it's about half, the space is about half of what you're showing, so that your door ends up looking, even though it's perfectly designed and it isn't a found object as that door clearly was, it actually looks more out of place, even though you're designing it from the ground up. Do you see that sort of, it looks like Alice in Wonderland's neck, the amount of space between the door and the lintel. Do you see that?
I think I understand what you're saying.
So I think, and then the last comment that I would make is that it's funny. I've seen a million garden gates and I've never seen screening in a garden gate. A screen is something that I absolutely associate with an interior because you're trying to keep bugs out of an interior, but I don't know what it would be achieving. And finally,
I wasn't picturing, yeah,
oh, sorry to interrupt. One last thought, and
sorry,
then
I
I'll,
wasn't,
and then I'll be quiet. If you just look very closely at that hardware, now that may have just been a placeholder. I know that very often the architects give us placeholders and that wasn't an intentional, but even the very clearly repurposed interior door handle on the one in the picture, right? But it's still a less sort of modern, kind of, it's quite a traditional round doorknob of weathered brass or bronze. And, so it's clearly a repurposed door to an interior, but part of its charm is that it at least looks, it's in a very informal context and it's an old fashioned doorknob. This doorknob here is, it looks like, you might find it in a very sleek house in Brentwood Park from 1989. If that makes sense.
understood, it does. And yes, I was a placeholder.
Mhm. So I guess the long and short of it is fantastic to have a deer fence, fantastic to have a portal like that that's really well thought out. But I wonder if you wouldn't be open to kind of just further feeling out the possibilities. And if I can make myself at all helpful by showing you a million examples of garden door frames, I would be happy to carve out that time and do it, but you're probably able to do that yourself.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that would be, so, I mean, a million pictures, might be too much of a burden on your time, but if you sent us 2 that you liked,
Okay.
that would be super.
I'll err on the side of 2 away from a million.
Okay.
Thank you for Martin, thank you for your sense of humor. I know how frustrating this process is. I, like all of us, have been on the other side of this, right? And it's time consuming, it's expensive, and it's frustrating. And I totally understand that. So thank you for your patience in going through this.
No, not at all, and we appreciate the input. So it'll be great to get an email from you with a couple of suggestions. We'll come back with another design, and can we just send it by email to the bar, and you can tell us if it works or if it doesn't work, as opposed to.
My pleasure, and forgive me if I give you 5.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
So maybe if we could go back to the skylights then. I mean, we appreciate the guidance on this. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that there is, at least amongst the 3 bar members present, it seems like it's okay to keep the one that is invisible. There's a mixed review on the one that is modestly visible. And there's less comfort around the carport one, and is there a way to disguise that? I mean, we're not looking to kind of create something fussy. There was a lot of discussion around, is there a way to hide it? I mean, the way to hide it is to plant, 1 or 2 trees on Tuxedo Road and it wouldn't be visible from there. It's really not visible from like 97% of the prime East Lake Road. So in my mind, it's either kind of figuring out that, or is there a way, I mean, I just cannot live with having a dark kitchen, like where you can't read the newspaper. So in my mind, like if I had to pick which children are more important to me, it's having 2 skylights. It's so weird in the kitchen, you're gonna be looking up and you're gonna have one skylight on one side and not on the other. This one skylight is in the corner. The other corner is gonna be bare. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is a house to live in. It's not a Potemkin village. There has to be a certain level of just materiality and what's reasonable. So if you all would work with us, then we could see to keeping the 2 kitchen skylights and if we need be covering up the carport skylight with shingle.
If I can just speak to that, Martin, My sense, based on other applications that have come before us and where this has become a bit of a tangle, and we basically, in another application, we came to the point of saying to the applicant, put the skylights where they are not public, but we can't accept having the skylights where they are viewed, widely and by everyone. So having already said that, I would submit that we've established a bit of an informal precedent that suggests that the two kitchen ones probably fall into that category.
I'm not sure I agree with that, Rob, because in this instance, we're talking about a historic home. In that instance, we were not. I'm not sure that's exactly the same thing.
No, that's a very valid point, Josh. Absolutely. And we can agree to disagree about that. And that's the thing, like each member of the board is going to come to this with greater or, with different approaches. And that's just the nature of a committee, right? So my sense is that probably those ones are, and before one talks about, throwing up your hands and getting rid of the extra source of light in an important room, I would just suggest perhaps if Andrew and his colleagues can think about some solutions in the direction that we talked about. I'm looking at that joint and already sort of imagining different ways in which it could be resolved in a way that would really distract from, if not hide, the skylight in question, the one that we've got up on the screen right now on the right.
So to summarize then, yeah, it would be a no to keep them as is. That would be very clear, whether it's 3 of us or 5 of us. To come to the compromise, have to come back with a clear plan of what you plan to do that would have to satisfy us that it was invisible. And then we would make sure that we do have a larger group, a fairer group, so that we can vote on it. It's a challenge. We accept that. And for what it's worth, I have the same problem. I have a 100-year-old house and a beautiful overhanging eaves, style roof, and it blocks all the light, and there's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. And I just have to embrace it. So I hear you, but because of this press.
As an aside, Christopher, I mean, the John Soanes Museum from 1850 has skylights. My in-laws did a historic house in East Hampton and it has skylights. Friends did a historic house in Southampton, has skylights. Others did a historic house in Hudson. I mean, to universally say we can't have skylights is it's just not where the real world is. I mean, nobody had garages. You gave us permission to put up a carport. Obviously that stuff didn't exist. I mean, why doesn't the bar say, we have this vendor of skylights that makes them in a way that we find are nice, and we will work with you as owners, because I mean, the original kitchen was in the basement. So I mean, these houses have to evolve.
Would you consider
if they look like this, we'll work with you?
Would you consider replicating a historic skylight? Hello?
I mean, it will be interesting to see what does that look like? I mean,
we could provide some examples of historic skylights if you would entertain doing that.
There's the Regner's property, their house, not the main house, but the house they purchased where they keep the cars on Mountain Road? Mountain Farm Road. They have some dormer type windows there that are new, but sort of historically styled. That's the thing. It's if there's something you can bring that isn't modern, if it's historically appropriate, it doesn't clash with the beautiful job you've done already. then, the likelihood of us approving it is much better.
But just to be, 100% clear, there are a number of considerations at play here. It's not just skylights verboten, the skylights that you're using on the kitchen front are symmetrical, small. Actually, most of the skylights that I've seen in residential architecture that, are old for what that's worth, tended to be square, tended to be smaller. Those to me look absolutely unobjectionable for a variety of reasons in terms of where you've placed them, the size, the relationship to the other forms. They just disappear. Part of the problem with this one is not just that it's bigger and therefore looks immediately more visibly like something that's tacked on, is the uncomfortable relationship between it and the dormer. Cheek by jowl together. One wonders why bother with the gorgeous, historically accurate or, dormer when you're going to shove the large skylight right next to it. This is why, in my mind, if there's a compromise that allows retaining the skylight in that place, in my mind, the likeliest scenario is finding a way to do what Christopher and your architect were discussing earlier.
So we will pick up on that. We hear you. We appreciate that advice. And Andrew will get to work and come up with something if there's a way to disguise that. And we understand your issue about the corner not being elegant, and we will work on that. So thank you.
Just to be clear, I think, how the design evolved is really exciting. I again, all this is new to me. So I was looking at the rectilinear, wings that you put on and then watching how they evolved. It's really exciting what you and your architectural team have done, specifically with that sort of branching off on that end of the house. It's really beautiful. And I just want you to know that others of us, not just your neighbors, feel that way and are grateful to you for, putting so much time and effort and resources into this renovation. It's an exciting thing. I don't want the message to be, a kind of a persnickety focusing on this one possibly objectionable detail.
Rob, I actually appreciate that. I've been quiet for most of this, but I have to say we've really embraced this community and we're extremely happy here. And we recognize that we did this without your approval. The circumstances were, as Martin described, COVID was what it was. We had 20 college kids of my friends and my kids in it. It was just a very chaotic time. We would not do what we did again. We understand. However, having said that, I guess I don't feel that it's persnickety. I feel that I feel frustrated that the context is not being incorporated somehow. As Andrew said, it's such a small piece on a very large renovation. I understand about setting precedent, but on the other hand, you want more people to come in and do what we're doing. You want us to tell our friends that this place is great. You want us to tell people that it's fun to renovate a house. And that piece of it, I have to say, I just am feeling a little bit of a disconnect between what we feel that how we're embracing the community and how we're embracing the housing and just everything about it. And it doesn't feel great, honestly.
I hear every word of that. It's not hard for me to understand, embrace, or agree with so much of what you say there. And that is why I sort of spoke up a moment ago. I guess, and I can speak only for myself as one of five here. My message would be, before one gets to the point of asking the board to just sort of either accept something that some members of it do find objectionable and move past it, or possibly a lot less to your liking, force it into the vote of saying no, take it out. I just would love to see a gesture of good faith in terms of design solution. And then we can reapproach it. If there is no solution and it's an either or proposition, then that's a whole other conversation. And I, for one, would be taking into account exactly what you just said.
No, we do take that into account, and very much. Unfortunately, it's just 2 strikes against you, and that it was done without permission and something that we wouldn't have approved. So we've got a bigger hole to climb out of. We want to climb out of it with you. We want to find a compromise. So that's why if we do find that, if you come up with that solution to hide it, then we'll be in a win-win situation. And that's where where all of us want to be in. But it's just, we're in a deeper hole than normal. But we do want to climb out of it. So we look forward to receiving that and appreciate.
So I guess I understand the guidance around the carport skylight, and obviously the one that's not visible is not visible. But the one on the other side of the kitchen that's only modestly visible, which is, square, and it sounds like reasonably historically contextual. I'm missing what is there some guidance there as to how to hide that one, other than, there's.
If I can just field that, my sense is that you're not going to get 5 people all to agree 100% of the time, and there are some members who may not feel comfortable saying, okay, go ahead and do that. I, for one, would feel comfortable saying, that's fine. This was expensive work. It was done under duress during COVID with issues of supply chain and scheduling. And I, for one, would look at that and say, it's symmetrical. It's got a minimal impact. It's not that visible. And in the spirit of what you're saying, and I take it really to heart, that these renovations cost so much blood, sweat, and tears and spirit. I would not want it to take a greater toll than it needs to. So I would say, yeah, leave those as they are. I would be surprised if if other members of the 5 of us didn't say the same, but I can't speak for other people. As for this one here, which is the one that's a greater question, I think the way forward is just to make a good faith effort to see what can be done in terms of a design solution. If something doesn't appear, that's another matter, and we'll reapproach it. And each one of us, members of the board, 5 of us, will have to weigh how serious we are about the need to correct it or not. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And we look forward to seeing what you come up with so that we can find a compromise that we're happy with. Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving
And
us so
also,
much time.
right, I just want to say we both do volunteer work in our regular life, and we recognize your volunteering your time to do things for the community. So we do appreciate that, and thank you.
Well, we appreciate your saying that.
I've been yelled at many times as a volunteer, so.
Well, have a good evening, and I really look forward to a constructive solution that makes everyone happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So next on the agenda is Mr. Shaw. Yes, there we go. It's for the replacing the fence on Tower Hill Road loop.
Yes.
Yeah. Remind us what this is about.
Sure. Along the Tower Hill Road loop is an old chain link fence. I guess that's always certainly been there my entire lifetime that I've been here in Tuxedo. It's falling down. It's in disrepair. So obviously I'm not going to replace it with a new chain link fence. Instead, I'd rather just use the same sort of deer fencing that's around my property now, that's around many people's properties, that's less obtrusive. It's a finer mesh, so it doesn't stand out. It requires fewer poles than what the chain link fence requires. But I guess the one issue that exists is that the existing fence where it lies is not in line with where the current code is, but I don't have enough room to move it back to be in the current code. And so I just would rather just replace the fence where it is and plant a hedge similar to the same privet that Steve's Pizza is using, And I guess also maybe I think it's the same that Michael Bruno used down at his place to hide the fence. Over time, it'll grow relatively quickly, and eventually you won't even see the fence. But that's what I'm asking for.
Can I ask a question, Scott?
Sure.
How deep is, I don't suppose we have visuals here, but
Well, I took some pictures, but I guess I didn't realize I thought for whatever reason they would be circulated to you. So I apologize.
I did see them earlier. It's just they're not in front of me.
Okay.
So how deep is the space between the edge of the road, or where the chain link fence is now, and the edge of the retaining wall? Is it about?
Sure. Yeah, it varies probably between, I don't know, 2.5 to 3.5 feet, maybe 4 feet at the peak. It's not, let's just say the wall's not straight and the road's not straight, so it kind of varies.
That sort of answers my question, because my first thought was, assuming a pretty consistent 4-foot depth, just to stagger the privet bushes, in a kind of a diagonals, if you know what I mean, sort of
Sure.
one on this side, one on this side, and then run the deer fencing right
Oh, in
straight
between.
through. And I'm gathering from what you say, Scott, that there isn't really room to do that.
Yeah, I haven't figured that out to do it that way. The one challenge I have is to the far, that's south. So to the far east side, there is no, there's an old decrepit staircase I haven't rebuilt yet. And so there's no room for about 8 feet there to plant anything behind it. So I couldn't move the fence back because it'd be in the air at that location. So in order to kind of keep just that straight line, the only kind of straightness that exists is the way it is along the edge of the gutter.
And what will you be using in that, where there's a steep drop off that you're just?
Well, there I can't plant anything as of yet. I mean, the goal is eventually to repair it or replace it or do something. But right now, it'll just be the fencing that's there.
I see.
And tell us about the gate. Will the gate match was it the same material?
Yeah, the exact same materials, the exact same piping, but I just need a way to get access to have mulch dropped off and have debris taken away, and to be able to properly maintain the space. So instead of having the trucks park on the street and block everything, this way they can and also no place to dump stuff. This way I can open up the gate. They just swing open. It's made all from the same material. It's similar. It'd be similar to, I don't know if you've been to Gail Lobkowitz's house, but her gate is made by the same gentleman with the same mesh and the same piping.
Would you have trucks pulling into the property where that gate is? Is that my understanding?
Well, they would dump off there. They back in and dump off the mulch or the dirt or stuff. Yeah, there's not that much space.
So you wouldn't be able to screen that part of the gate with the privet, though?
No, that part would not be. I think that's what's on my, it should be on my drawing that I have. The privet goes up to that area. So the gate would be 10 feet, from your property. So there would be some sort of either the privet, or maybe I'd get the same hollies that you have to kind of go along that section. Then there would be the gate, and then the privet would start with the rest of the fencing.
And that area, Scott, where the gate would be, there's nothing across from it. That doesn't affect, there's no neighbor.
No.
It's
No. Well, there's the old staircase from when it all was part of Alex Som's house. And
right.
the staircase would go down and his mailbox was there, but now they've moved the mailbox over to the end of his driveway. But yeah, that's all that's there.
Of now, what's Charles Myers, like he
Yes.
wouldn't be looking at that.
No, and he's elevated above it
Right.
anyway by at least 7 feet or so.
Well, that's helpful to know.
And he has a hedge of yews or something anyway that blocks it all.
Mhm.
Well, it does seem to be, replacing this current chain link fence is a great thing, and it adds functionality to your garden, beneficial to keep the deer out. So I certainly I don't have a problem with it. And the fact that it's close to the road, that I don't think there's an option for putting it further back. And I guess the other option would be not having anything at all, and I think that would be dangerous with that steep drop off. So yeah, no, I don't have a problem with.
I don't have a problem with it either. I think that there's, as you know, in terms of there's no other solution than to have it be abrupt and hard on the road for the reasons that you laid out, Scott.
Mhm.
I guess, and normally I think that the plastic deer fencing that we all use, you know, because we all need it, is perfect. I guess my question is, when you're when the proposition is trying to get privet to grow through and disguise something,
Yep.
that sort of operates on the assumption of a certain amount of rigidity on the fence, so it's not pushing it out. I might have suggested something that's not like heavy gauge wire, but you know, the sort of more rectilinear kinds of wire that are also, you know, black painted or rubber coated or whatever, sort of for wear and tear and weather, but you know, that would allow greater space for the privet to come through and greater rigidity between, you know, where that's happening.
Mhm.
I guess that, you know, I think you need a fence, you need a deer fence for that garden, and just maybe to explore an option or two as far as what's going to coexist with the privet most effectively to
Mhm.
ultimately achieve what your goal is happily, which is invisibility.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I can certainly ask him. I don't know if they have a wider gauge fencing that he utilizes, but I can certainly ask him.
Well, you know, anything will get deer. I mean, it's one, you know, deer will be kept out if it could be, it could have, you
Yeah.
know, 3 or 4, you know, inches in,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. A wider. Yeah.
right. So that's one thought. As far as the gate goes, I mean, I understand that's a sort of a service area for the garden, and it's necessary given the steep grade and everything. And if it's not facing someone directly, I
Mhm.
wouldn't have a problem with that either. And I almost feel like just to have it be functional and utilitarian and call a spade, you know, I think is the smart solution,
Mhm.
rather than to ask for you to gussy that up or something, you know, in
Right.
what is clearly a service area.
Appreciate that.
And you have one neighbor on the screen. Do you have the other neighbors been notified? And
I did not notify them, but I'm happy to.
I think it's definitely an upgrade over what's there, which is without a doubt an eyesore. But I just, it's not necessarily an issue for me, but because of the distance from the road, is that going to require a variance? And also the gate itself, does that require a variance because we're adding another access to the property? I don't know if someone can clarify that.
Well, there is a gate there now, but it's just a passenger person gate versus
Right,
a
but this
wider
is more of something you could pull a vehicle
Yeah,
onto.
Correct. Correct.
I don't know if someone can weigh in on that.
It might need a variance because generally I think those gates need to be set back something like 12 feet in or something, or 8 or 12 feet in. And this would be hard on the road, Scott, right? So
Correct.
it may, I mean, as annoying as of a headache as that may be, it may require a variance. John, do you?
We don't necessarily require a variance for gates. I think the 12 feet that you're referring to is the automatic gates. We ask that they're set back off the road, so a car upon approach can get mostly off the road before the gates open, so the car is not out in the street waiting for the gates to open. I also think in this case, the gates may actually be opening inwards possibly, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're not
Scott
open.
can ask that.
Yeah.
If the gates open inwards, then we're really not blocking any traffic. A vehicle can pull in temporarily, drop some stuff off and then leave. As far as the setback, you know, any new gate or any new fence would have to be 5 feet off the road. In this case, because there are some obstacles setting things back, and because we're replacing an existing fence, I think if Mr. Shaw was able to give us a document not holding the village liable, God forbid there is any damage to the gate because of snow or anything, I think that might adequately suffice.
Great.
That's not a problem.
any other questions or concerns? Well, I think we can take a vote on this. So I'd like to make a motion for the replacement of a chain link fence with a deer fence and 10, was it 10-foot wide gate?
I think it's 22 10-foot
20,
wide
two
things that
10-foot
open
wide,
up.
20-foot wide gate that opens inwards. Lot 111C belonging to the Shaw family. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Should we add that it's conditional on the letter that he would have to produce?
Conditional on the letter, thank you, that Mr. Shaw will provide that won't hold the village liable for any damage,
Sure.
snow plowing on the road.
Seconded.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So yes, 3 unanimous decision to for the replacement. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think the last item on the agenda is the review of minutes, which have been circulated and revised. Like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of April the 1st,
Yes, that's correct.
2001. Do I have a second?
Second.
To be you, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess I can say aye, even though I wasn't there.
Oh, can we vote on that then?
That's a good question.
I'm not sure we can.
The reason I didn't second is that I wasn't there, but I wonder if,
We can, let's hold off then for the next meeting to vote on these minutes then.
unless Brian feels otherwise.
Have you reviewed them, Mr.
I have
McQuilkin?
Yes, I have reviewed them.
Yeah, I mean, you could approve them, but if the board feels better having 3 members that were present approve them, that's fine as well. I mean, you can't. Well, let me just say this. Minutes don't need to be approved legally in the first place, so there really isn't any issue if you were to vote on them for the purposes of approval, because there's no legal requirement to do it anyway. So if you wish to approve them for the sake of, releasing them and deeming them approved, the board could do that if Mr. McQuilkin's reviewed the minutes and nobody has any
and
objection.
I've also watched it going back and forth, and so everyone has had a chance to see it and make changes and did or didn't make them, and so, right, Christopher? I mean,
Yeah, so there's really no, honestly, legal effect one way or another because the law doesn't require you to do the approval in the first place. So I have no problem if you want to vote on them and get them done tonight.
and I'll chime in with an aye as well.
Thank you. So the minutes have been approved. And that concludes the Board of Architectural Review meeting of April the 15th. Thank you very much.
You have to vote to close.
Yes.
Oh, no, I want to stay here all night.
If we don't do this,
Motion
we'll be stuck here.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Christopher, thank you for stepping in for Chairwoman Trelens.
Oh, you're welcome. I wish I had the same hair that she did.
Well done. All right.
Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one. Cheers.